Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting Vobes show. I'm Richard Vobes, and this is the show for you if you've just happened to tune into it, because I'm here. I'm the nit in it. Yes, there's always a nit in it, and this is the nit in it tonight. And welcome. It's the 3rd of June. We are close approaching the summer. Some people say we're in it. Some people don't say we're in it, but actually the clouds have covered over the sun, so I don't know where we are. Anyway, welcome to the show. It's a Wednesday this evening. It's very nice to be here. And also, it's nice to see in the Vobosphere some of the familiar faces. So let's find out who some of the familiar faces are and if they are familiar. And if they're not familiar, then welcome to the unfamiliar faces and indeed names. We've got the lovely Julia. Hello, lovely Julia. We've got Connor's dark corner, which is nice to see him sitting in the dark corner. Shine a light on him and he'll blinker away like this. Andy Stacey is there. Good evening. Ed Loud, Turbo Stream, Mike Stevens, Audrey Forbes Hamilton, Ed Loud, put the cotton wool in your ears. Steve G, Mike Stevens, I may have said that. Sean James Cameron, Coronation Street, done. Now for a slice of Vobes and tea. Don't get it mixed up where you slice up the Vobes and eat the tea for the coronation. Could happen. I hope it doesn't, but you never quite know. Ron Langley is there, Roy Ballinger, Michael Angel, the lovely Judith. Thank you very much for popping in. Richard Upton, W. Tally-ho, Richard, says Ernie. It's loving your current reading and videos. Thank you very much, which I'm hoping that they will continue to be good, although there's a sort of little lull at the moment, and I'm trying to work out where I'm going tomorrow. Robert Croser is upon us. Richard Upton is now saying, "Watcha!" And Ed Loud says, "I have to stop putting cotton wool in my ears, Richard. I kept falling through and coming out the other side. Oh dear, that's no good." Hopefully they came out clean and not slightly mucky. Mucky. We don't want any of that mucky cotton wool. Now, as you know, I'm trying to get themes, topics, if you like, not the chocolate bar. That would be too much like putting on weight. Are those cornflakes behind you? Oh, yes. These are cornflakes. There was a little bit of advertising there. Cornflakes. There we are. Kellogg's cornflakes, ladies and gentlemen. They're in my office. And actually, there are cornflakes in the box. It's good of you to notice that. Thank you very much, Mr. Hawkeye. And as they say in the trade, who keeps cornflakes in a studio? Well, usually somebody performing. But also, whilst we have it, we have some El Paso de Chile de Fresco here, which I'm hoping that once my new super-duper mixing desk is here, I can start cooking with some of these items. This looks very nice. These are from America. This is salsa, or whatever it is. Salsa de jalapeno. So I'm guessing that's very hot. Little can of something nice that young Jeff. We also have some pasta in the studio here. More pasta. Oops. One broken microphone. Some cheap rich tea biscuits, just in case one gets a bit peckish. Some Christmas black tea from the Tea and Coffee Company. Who keeps tea in a filing cabinet? And of course, down in the bottom, the piece de resistance is some super fast oats. And they're all in my filing cabinet here in the studio. And you may say, why do you keep all that stuff in there? It's so my son doesn't get it. If I put it out on the shelf in the kitchen, there won't be any left for me. It's like, oh, some nice porridge. Gone. That's how easy it is. Tim Williams, up, cheese and biscuits on the Vobes show. Unbeatable combination. Don't know whether you speak like that, Tim, but if you do, then that was very lucky of me to manage to do the impersonation. But if you don't, then it was just dreadful. So there we are. You could do a serial. I could have a different serial there every night. Well, not every night. That means there'd have to be 365 serials, and I don't know that there are, or at least none that I would like. What ho, Vobesters says, I've arrived in time this time, says Andrew Norris, back from the fields, which is great to see. Veg Grower Podcast is here, and Robert Croser says, I do the inaccurate impressions, Mr. Loud. Oh, that's good. Marvellous. And Graham Roffey says an old apprentice instructors had whiskey in their filing ink cabinet. Filing ink cabinet? I don't know what a filing ink... That was me cocking up. Anyway, so tonight's topic on the show, what I want to talk about, give us a theme to talk about, give us something, some construction, something to aim for on tonight's load of old waffle that we've got. We've got 3 fantastic videos lined up on the system, by the way, just to let you know. But I want to know, how do you want to live? How do you want to live? How would you, in an ideal world, I know, most of us are either renting or we're mortgaged to the hilt, or maybe we've paid off our mortgage. I was listening to a thing that popped up on my phone on a YouTube channel earlier today. And it's just one of those things. It pops up. You know how these things that recommend, oh, you might be interested in this. It was talking about land. And who owns the land? That's what it was talking about. Who owns it? It turns out that actually the Crown owns all the land. We think that those of us who have paid off our mortgage and have something freehold think we own the land the house sits on. We don't. It's complete and utter rubbish. We don't own it. We own a lease for it. Now, you might think, well, that's leasehold, isn't it? No. That's not right. We have a lease with the Crown. If the Crown wanted to, they could just use the land that our house is on for whatever purpose they wanted to do. They did it in the Second World War, not on individual houses in terraces and up and down the country, but actually they occupied some of the big landowners' land, apparently. And not only did they occupy it and allow the tanks to drive up and down it and shoot at things and shoot old buildings and tear up the countryside with their manoeuvres and practices because there was a war on, the landowners didn't get any money for it. They didn't get rent. I think they got some other form of compensation, but I don't know what that is. Maybe they got titles, maybe they got rights to certain other things, but they didn't actually get any rent. And that's interesting because the real landowner, i.e. the Crown, doesn't have to pay rent to itself because the Crown owns all the land. Anyway, so it got me thinking. Sorry, I just got to play with my puggy eye. It got me thinking, ladies and gentlemen, how do you want to live? How do you want to live? I mean, take that aside, about the land ownership and what have you. What would you want to do if you could? If you could go, there's this sort of movement about people who like to live off the grid and they'd like to live in the middle of a forest and all of that and have solar panels so that they can charge up their laptops and still connect to the internet and be away from everything but still be with everything, which is a bit of a strange thing, I suppose. They want to dig down into the ground and get the water out the stream, and try and pay as little as possible. They probably still want to use the hospitals if they get ill and break a leg or something like that. They probably still would like the fire brigade to come if somebody sets light to their fires, though they may not want to pay council tax. So I'm just curious. How, if you could, how would you like to live yourselves? And you can give us a call because it would be nice to have a little chat. And of course, you can add your 10 pence worth or 50 pence worth or your whole complete council tax worth in the comments this evening. So let's have a look and see what people are saying. This doubles as Eric's larder. Oh yes, Eric's larder is definitely down. I think he is the one that munches them away, because if I do notice that sometimes the filing cabinet is a little empty. Well, I went to my allotment today in the rain and it was very nice, says Turbo Stream. I still got to play with my itchy eye, which, again, causes me no end but jip. This morning I was washing my face, as you do, at the sink, and there was something puggy in my eye, and I pinged it, and the eye fell out. Pinged away, and I had that hideous moment where I thought either I'm going to lose the prosthesis or it's going to hit a very hard surface and shatter, whereupon I'll have nothing to plug in my eye than perhaps an old marble or a cork or a stone that I found on the beach that's approximately the right size, or an old shell or something like that, or a 10 pence or something. Would look a bit weird and probably feel very uncomfortable. Robert Croser says, I done all that. I would like to live in the forest in a tiny house, says Sean James Cameron. And it's interesting, isn't it? That's a very interesting thing because, You think you could do that, couldn't you? You could just buy some land. You think, well, I'll just buy some land and do what I like to. But of course, you can buy land. You can buy some land relatively cheaply. But of course, there are restrictions on what you can do with that land. So even though you can buy the land and you think, well, I'm buying the land, aren't I? Why can't I do what I want to do with it? It's my land. Well, it's not your land. You see, you're only buying a lease, aren't you? And this bit of land lease comes with the restrictions that you can't chop down whatever trees you want to chop down, maybe. You can't live on the land. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do the other. And you might want to do a bit of the other. But at the moment, you can't get within 2 meters of each other. So there's no chance of doing the other. Not with a relative stranger. Possibly with a relative, as long as the relative's your wife, I suppose, or girlfriend or partner or however it is. Anyway, the church owns a lot of land as well. Well, the church does own a certain amount of land, not as much as it used to own. Back in the before the whatever you call it, the dissolution of the monasteries. That was the words I was looking for. The church owned a lot of land, but Henry VIII put paid to that, didn't he? Let's find out who's on the phone, calling up the Vobie One-Eyed Kenobi. Hello.
It's Sean James Cameron.
Ah, Sean James Cameron. Hello, Sean James. Do you like to be called Sean or Sean James, or the whole title? Is it Lord? Is it Lord Sean James?
Well, it's Sir, but we'll forget about that.
Oh, Sir, is it? Sir James. Sir Lord.
Some people just do the first name. Some people do the two names. Some people go straight to the James.
Oh, fair enough. Well, I'll just call you Oi. So, Oi. No, I'll call you Sean. So, where would you would like to live in a forest, would you, or in a woodland?
Well, I've been looking at prices, and for 3.5 acres in Wales, you can get for 28,000.
And what can you do with that land?
Not a lot.
Right. That is the thing, isn't it? That is the thing. That you might be able... And is that... What kind of quality land is that? Your 28 acres?
Well, from the latest one that I'm looking at now, it's basically the farmers getting rid of a part of the field, which is next door to the woodland. So half of it is covered in trees and half of it isn't. But from what I understand, the rules are, as if you were to live there, but not make the house disguisable, so that you're not deliberately trying to hide it.
Right.
If you stay there without any issues for 4 years, you can then apply and get planning permission to stay.
So that opens a bit of a can of worms. Without issues, what issues could they be, and who's and are they listed, and can somebody just make up those issues as and when they want?
It seems to be that you need to find neighbours that are okay with it, but aren't going to say anything to the authorities.
I see. That's not very 28. How much did you say? 28 grand.
Yes.
Yes, it's quite a hefty amount of money. I mean, it's not as much as a house, obviously, but on the say so that you might accidentally put your neighbour out, and they go, do you know what? I've had enough of that bloke. He's been planting so much rhubarb. He was going to send some to the Vobes, but that never happened. And we're going to tell the authorities.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, would you want to live for 4 years with that hanging over your head?
I know.
You've got to be nice to everybody.
Yeah. And then you said you can apply, and you may not get, because that's the thing. You can apply. It doesn't mean that you mandatory by your 4 years of sitting it out and sweating it out, you've actually automatically got it. You could apply, and they say, well, you know what? No.
Well, apparently there's a case going on in Wales at the moment, which is exactly that. She's lived there for 10 years. The council have found her, and obviously they want the council tax. So they've got her to fill out the forms, telling her off the record that they were going to approve it, and apparently they haven't.
Oh.
So she's now put her head above the parapet, and it's been chopped off. But I've heard that councils in Frome...
Oh, yes.
Apparently Frome is a good council for a tiny house.
Now, when you say a tiny house, do you mean what kind of tiny? I mean, smallish house.
A tiny house is classed as a house that is on the back of a trailer. So
That is tiny. I mean, that's minuscule, isn't it? That's a caravan.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes,
in size.
It's
You're
got to
talking
be a building that can be pulled so that it's
not
permanent. It's not a permanent building.
Right. And is that what you want to live in, that smaller property?
That's what yes, because I'd be busy all the time outside, tending the land, living off the land.
And it's so is that I mean, that sounds like one room, effectively.
Yes.
One room.
Well,
with a kitchen
is usually upstairs.
Yes, yeah. But and would you have bathroom and all that in separate rooms, or it's all in one room?
No, so the bathroom and toilet is usually in the same room. So you can have a poo and have a shower at the same time.
And lie in bed and, just lie in bed with a hole in the bottom of it. with something to collect it in, your washing up bowl, presumably. So that sounds grim. Why would you want to do? Why would you possibly want to? I mean, it's entirely up to you. You're entirely. Are you alone in this house, or is there someone else to consider?
Just me and two cats.
Just you and two cats, okay. And I'm sure the cats won't object too much, as long as there's plenty of mice and countryside. So what will you do? There you are. Let's say this is like desert island discs, and at the end they say, you can have whatever luxury you like. Let's say that you're there in your wilderness with nobody about, and the farmer isn't coming over sort of checking to make sure you're not doing anything untoward. What are you going to do with your life?
Film it, put it all onto the YouTube channel, and hopefully it makes enough income to stay there.
And if it doesn't,
then
I mean, I'm not.
The ground.
Could you dig down if nobody knew? Could you put another room underneath?
Well, I did try that on the allotment that I had. They said you can't have a shed that's taller than 6 foot. So I dug down 10 foot, and I had it downstairs.
Oh, did you? And did anybody know?
Nobody knew about it for quite a while, but then it flooded.
Ah, and then you had a swimming pool?
Yes.
Inside a shed? You had an indoor pool?
I did.
Yeah, how lovely. And on a hot day like we've had recently, how refreshing that would be.
It was quite nice on a warm day. You could just go in and wash your rhubarb.
Yeah, bit of bog snorkeling, I think they call that, don't they? Well, there we go. That sounds...
It's something that I'm exploring.
Yeah. Oh, well, do let us know how you get on with that. And, of course, you'll need somewhere that's fairly near the 5G when it's here so that you can upload your content and we can all keep an eye on you.
Well, this is one of the things. I don't particularly want to be right in the heart of the forest. It's got to be close to, a shop.
Yes.
So I'm I don't know if I like that thought of being, stuck in the wilderness and you need an ambulance and you've got to say, now go past the 4th tree.
Yes.
And then, you're on the floor.
Well, you'd have, you could use GPS or 3-word location or something like that. You can get the people to you wherever you are these days. But you've got to know where that is. What was I going to say is, are you a caravan or are you a camper or anything like that? Have you tried anything similar just for 2 or 3 weeks in a No. I mean, before you spend your 28 grand, it might be worth just going to a campsite somewhere, remote farmers campsite.
Well, I actually had a conversation with the Veg Grower podcast this morning.
Richard.
This morning, in fact.
Yeah.
And he suggested get a little caravan and go off for the weekends and see how that feels.
Yes, I think you'd have to test it.
I'm just trying to think ahead because at the moment, London is it's costing me about £1,500 a month just to be here.
Yeah, well, you don't want to do that, do you? Who wants to live in London when there's the rest of the country to go and explore? Sean, lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much. I'm going to play a video, but we've set us off with where you would like to live and how. That's really good. Thank you very much. Are you still there? It's gone. Anyway, sorry, I must have pressed the wrong button. I didn't mean to ditch the call. If you're still watching, Sean, I didn't mean to ditch it to go quite that quickly. Anyway, so that's fascinating. Let's have a quick look at some of the comments, and we'll go to another call after the first video. So there we go. 7 billion inhabitants. Dream living is a rare beast. That's very true. Val William, that's Graham, yes. Val Williams says, I'd like to get rid of the clutter and excess stuff. Yes, I'm with you there. I don't know whether the amenity tips are open and whether we can get down there at the moment. Andrew Norris says, one should have the attitude that you are only a guardian of the land, looking after it until you pass on. And I totally agree with that. It does look like, I mean, you know, the guardian of the land. Isn't that what the landowners did in the times when they started to enclose the land and get rid of the peasants to get them off the land? And actually, I was listening to something. I think it was the same guy who said. Actually, it's interesting because when the landowners were enclosing the land in the various different times, and this went on in different times over history, that actually although people lost the ownership to the land by being swept off them, very often it wasn't that they didn't lose so much, that they lost the rights. The more important thing was they lost the rights. They had rights back in the feudal days when they could have common ground, common land to put on their cow or their sheep or their cat, whatever it was that they had, a little chicken or something. They had the right to do that. They had the right to pick up wood. They had the right to do a bit of pannage, and let their pigs snorkel about for some mast. And then the enclosures came round, and they didn't have those rights anymore. Those rights, no longer could you go and grab a wild animal or something from the forest, because then it was then classed as poaching. You were then poaching, whereas you had rights one day, Act of Parliament, and now you're a poacher if you do it, or you starve, which is what was going on. Let's have a look at some more comments. I'm with you, Mr. Baxter. What did Mr. Baxter say? I'm trying to look up there. You've got a lot of money tied up in 30 years that you... Hang on. You have a lot of money tied up for around 30 years that you get very little return on, especially when you take into account the money you spend on the maintenance on a property. Yeah, that's very true. Graham Whittington says the lovely white painted timber farmed house on the corner of Fulking would be lovely to live in. It's up for sale if you have well over... What have you got there? 50,000. It's well over 50,000. I think it's more like... probably 1.5 million, isn't it? Something like that. Must be somewhere like that. It's got to be an enormous amount, unless you've got 500,000. Is that what it's over 500,000? 500,000. It's got to be more than 500,000, surely. Yeah, no, I'm with you there. What about mortgage is equal to a death contract? One should have... Yes, I'm just rereading some there by mistake. I like to have an old house with stained glass windows full of antiques and old books with a coal fire, says Peter Lowry. Ah, Peter. And I bet you're not 21, are you? No, we know you are, because you've shown us all your wonderful books. And I can see you in that wonderful setting. How lovely is that? What a lovely idea. Yeah, interesting. Holiday home, Andrew Norris, says Robert Croser. I live here for half the year. Ed Loud says, for me, it's much more about the location and the people around than the actual building that I live in. We'll come back to these after we've had a look at our first video. Let's go into the video box and see what's there. And funnily enough, I think we'll start with Ed Loud, who took us on some walks around where he lives up in Greenwich, but now he's going somewhere slightly different, and he's given me the pronunciation of which I'm going to cock up if I even attempt it. So Ed is going to do the explanations himself. Here we are, Ed Loud.
If you've been following my journey so far, you'd have seen me start here, on the border of the boroughs of Bexley and Greenwich. Following the A2 along the East Rochester Way and Rochester Way Relief Road, walking half a mile into the Royal Borough of Greenwich, I've arrived at this marvellous green space.
Hello and welcome to Eltham Park. I'm here exploring Eltham Park South. Eltham Park North is just across this wide bridge,
which stretches over the A2 and the railway between Falconwood and Eltham. Never fear, I'll be visiting the north side later on in my journey, the south side containing more than enough to keep anyone busy. Starting in the northeast corner of the park, the first thing that would strike most visitors after taking the route I have is the sheer openness at this end. There's space aplenty, with the south side alone being over 40 acres. Room enough for plenty of casual sports and recreation. You actually can't see much of the western end of the park from here, due to the lie of the land. Don't be fooled, there's more than just grassy fields to Eltham Park South. As well as the present-day facilities, further into the site, there's also a notable history, particularly rich during the 20th century. The site came to be owned by the Cameron Corbett Development Company at the end of the 19th century. But soon enough, at the start of the 20th century, in 1902, the land was purchased by London County Council and Woolwich Borough Council, which now in the present day has amalgamated into the Royal Borough of Greenwich. As we head further west, we'll learn how the events of World War II and its aftermath drastically reshaped this park for a time. For now, I'm going to enjoy this avenue of horse chestnut trees lining the southern path along this park. This path itself is interesting logistically, as it forms part of both the Capital Cycle Ring and the Green Chain Walk. There are more paths to explore here, so make sure you join me next time when we can explore some of them together and see more of this beautiful space which juxtaposes the lively and the peaceful all at once. See you soon.
There we go, the inimitable Ed Loud with some amazing graphics at the beginning and some wonderful shots in there. And how lovely and luscious it looks, and we can't wait to see the second one. Thanks for that, Ed. Much appreciated. A lot of work goes into some of these videos, and it is much appreciated. And of course, even if you just go out with a camera and just film yourself doing whatever you do, that's also appreciated. And you can send your videos, of course, to the old Vobie One-Eyed Kenobi for the Vobe Show inclusion. Couple of minutes is about the right sort of time, but if it wavers a little bit, then that's not so bad. And the instructions on how to do it are all in the description on the YouTube underneath, as it were. Now, here's a thought. Been reading some of your comments about the places you'd love to live. As you may know, of course, we have a green and pleasant land, but most of the green and pleasant part that you see is owned by not so many landowners, and the landowners can be great big estates. And here's a question let me pose to you. Would you, a lot of this land is owned by somebody else. Should we carve it up, let more people have some of that land so that they could perhaps have more gardens rather than being cluttered up on top of each other and actually live out in the countryside, which is what a lot of people seem to want to do? But then, if we do that, how would that change the countryside? Because some of that land, even on the estate, still have, much to their chagrin, and I'm sure I've said that wrong, the word chagrin, I always say it wrong apparently, they still have the public footpaths going through. So even though you can't own some of these big, large estates of land, you can actually appreciate them by walking through them. But should they be in the hands of fewer landowners, and should more people have access to them rather than living in the tiny shoeboxes that they're building all over the place because there is supposedly not enough land to go round? Be interested in your thoughts on that. You are very welcome to give a tinkle on the phone number, which is 0793 474 6790 on the screen now. Let's go back and just chase up some of these thoughts. So people are asking different technical questions about the filming technique and stuff. And Sean says, my friend lives in Eltham or Etam or however it's pronounced. I knew I'd get it wrong. Great low-level walking to the camera shot. I must borrow that, says Glastonbury Gabriel, which is great. The lovely Julia says, wow, look at you, Ed. This is great. And it is. Rick Gordon says, Gordon, Ellis and Steele. Lovely location for a lovely video. Oh, that's part of your... that's probably part of your name, isn't it? What software was it? He's asking. I think you did a lot in DaVinci Resolve, didn't you? Clever the way the camera followed you as you walked, which was grand. Really enjoyed that. What have you? Scotland has the right to roam access, right to the land. Can't England do the same, says Mike Stevens. Yes, we do have some areas of right to roam, don't we? And I was just reading about some of that earlier today. But on the South Downs, they're ridiculously tiny little bits. A lot of the South Downs is in private ownership. And yes, there's the footpaths you're allowed to go on, but you can't just go wandering across any old bit that you fancy. And that's sort of wrong. Let's find out who's calling the old Vobie to see what they want to do and how they want to live. Hello to the caller.
Hi, it's Rob Baxter.
Hello, Rob.
Hi. I still had you on in the background there, and there's a bit of a delay. It seemed a bit weird.
Sorry about that. Yeah, because you have to turn down the volume of the actual monitoring system that you're watching on.
Yeah. I was just ringing to say I lived in a caravan for 18 months, a Torah caravan.
What was that like?
It was all right. It was pretty interesting. It was quite a simple way of life.
And how many were with you, or were you on your own?
I was on my own.
Okay. And where? I mean, sort of remotely, or in a town, or give us a bit of a idea where you were.
It was on the outskirts of the town,
right.
a couple of miles away from the town centre. Basically, it was a farmer's field, but he turned it into a campsite, and it was right by the edge of the canal. It was quite relaxing, really.
I can imagine.
Yeah, very quiet.
What were you doing for work?
Well, I was just doing factory work back then on the agency.
Right.
So just doing a normal sort of boring job, really.
But you were able to sustain, because I guess you didn't have that many outgoings living in a caravan on a farmer's field.
No, not at all. It cost me, they charged £3 a night to keep it there.
Oh,
so
right.
It was £21 a week.
21, hang on, £21 a week?
Yeah, because it was, like I say, they just charged £3 a night. It was a really basic one. It had a water tap in the corner where you could get fresh water from.
And the water was free, presumably?
Yeah, that was free, yeah. And then it had a place where you could empty your toilet into, and that's all it had. It was the most basic one you could get, because that's the minimum requirement to have a campsite, they said, was just those two things.
Did you have electricity?
No, I had a leisure battery for all the electricity.
Right. Which you had to charge up then somehow?
I had to charge that up, yeah. What I did was I usually went to my mum's once a fortnight and stayed with her at the weekend once a fortnight, and then I used to charge it up whilst I was there. So
off you went to your mum, presumably with your washing and all those things that we just take, chuck stuff in the tumble dryer or whatever, or the washing machine. You presumably had to do all that as well.
I did, yeah. But, I did go to the laundrettes as well sometimes.
Right.
Because there was a laundrette not too far away.
They're a dying thing, aren't they? Although I did see a laundrette outside a garage. It's like an Amazon locker, but it was just a public laundrette with no building attached. That was a bit weird. I've never seen that before. So how did you occupy yourself in your downtime?
I don't know. It's just a really simple way of life. It's before the days of smartphones and everything. It was probably about 20 years ago.
Right.
And I have got a mobile phone. That was when I first got a mobile phone, when I moved in there, because I'd never even had a mobile phone before. But I thought I've got no other way of contacting people, so I bought my first mobile phone.
So So this is 18 months. So this is a good crack at the whip, isn't it? Of living in a very simple way of life. Was there moments where you thought this is miserable, or you know, did your emotions go up and down with this type of living?
Towards the end, I was getting quite fed up with it. Yeah, probably the last few months I was doing it. Yeah,
Right.
I did 2 winters because of when I moved into it, I actually stayed in it through 2 winters. But summer was quite bad as well because during the summer it was like a greenhouse inside. It was like really hot.
Gosh.
So in the winter in a way wasn't as bad because you could put the heater on and keep warm and everything.
Yeah.
But in the summer it was like a bit like being in an oven. Really, it was really uncomfortable.
Yes, I can imagine. So it's going from one extreme to the other.
Yeah, it was really. Yeah. So I think towards the end I was getting a bit fed up of it. I did it out of necessity, really, because.
Well, that's different, isn't it? If you've got to do things out of necessity, you kind of have to put up and you count your lucky stars because you've got somewhere. Whereas if you've made it a choice and you've got a bit of land and you can improve the land and do things, were you able to, in that time, do anything, you know, other than perhaps have barbecues? Were you able to grow anything?
Well, no, not really. I had like a plastic table and chairs that I had outside the caravan, so I used to have friends round and we used to have a few beers and things like that.
Yeah.
In the evening in the summer, but I had to. They asked me to move it around a bit because they said if it was stuck in one place for too long,
I see.
then I might have to start paying council tax on it, or so they'd like me to move it around the campsite a bit so it wasn't in one place for too long.
Oh, and then in time, other caravanners turned up, and as you said, it's turned into a campsite.
That's right. Yeah.
So presumably the farmer was slowly setting up this business then, and presumably eventually got permission to allow people on bigger numbers of people, so he could actually start to make it pay rather than just have you there. I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, there were a couple of other people there when I was there as well, but I think he was just setting it up really because I've been back to it since a couple of times just to see what it's like, and there's quite a lot of caravans on there now. It's quite busy now.
Right. Has he got a shower? Has he got a shower block now and all those mod cons?
No, unfortunately, that was one thing he hadn't got, and I hadn't got one in my caravan either. But a lot of people took the mick a bit. But I was quite into swimming at the time, so I used to go swimming, and afterwards I'd have a shower. You see, a couple of like a few times a week.
Yes.
But a lot of people like sort of taking a mix, saying, "Oh, what do? Do you get in a swimming pool with your bar of soap and your brush and your rubber duck and everything, and start having a bath in the swimming pool?" But it wasn't like that really. I was into swimming anyway, and
yes.
I just used to obviously have a shower afterwards as well.
It's interesting what you say about other people's attitudes to it. Were people generally who didn't, not your friends who you'd have round and have drinks and what have you, but other people, were they genuinely negative about the situation, or did they treat you differently as if you were a traveller or a homeless person, or were they just, they didn't really care?
I think there was a lot of joking about it, but it was just banter really. It wasn't, it wasn't anything that serious.
Because you're only paying 20 odd quid a week, whereas they're probably paying, for, I don't know, £300 a week or 100 and something, or what, you said it was quite some time ago, wasn't it? So that might have been quite expensive then. It seems cheap now. Yeah,
well, even back then, I think it was still quite cheap, really.
Yeah.
And then I had to buy the gas in the bottles as well,
right?
Like the Caravan bottles.
Yes. So,
but there definitely weren't many expenses though. It was a cheap way of living, and it was quite a simple way of living as well. It was quite laid back really. Like you didn't have to worry about sort of doing much overtime at work or finding money for bills and things like that. It was
would you do it again?
I can't really do it now because I've got a family and things now. But
Right.
yeah, if I was on my own, I'd quite happily go back to that sort of lifestyle, or possibly live on a barge or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like a narrowboat.
You don't mind your own company. I know that some people can't bear to be on their own. I mean, I don't mind my own company. I keep myself busy, but some people are a bit, I need somebody to talk to.
No, I don't mind my own company too much. It's, I mean, obviously, I do like to see people and socialise with people, but it doesn't bother me going for a few days being on my own, to be honest. No, I quite like it, actually.
What an amazing experience. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's okay. I just thought, because you were talking about caravans and things, I thought it seemed the ideal opportunity to ring in, really.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And did you say your name was Rob?
Yeah, Rob, yeah.
Yeah, Rob, brilliant. Thanks so much, Rob. I've got to move it on, but that's been really interesting to hear that 18 months ago. And I think the funniest thing is that you had to move it round so that it made the place look busy. How exciting, how interesting.
I know. Yeah, it takes all sorts, doesn't it, really?
Absolutely. Well, thank God it does. Anyway, lovely to talk to you, Rob.
Okay, thanks, Richard.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
What about that? There we are. Could you do 18 months in a caravan for £21 a week? Could you do, or whatever the equivalent is these days? Isn't that amazing? There's a fantastic story. That's really interesting. Let's have a quick look at, in fact, I'm going to show a video and then I'm going to come back to your comments because it gives me a chance to read them whilst the video is on. So let's go into the video box. And we have talking about being in confined spaces. We have our friends who live on a narrowboat, floating our boat, Fran and Rich. But they're not on their boat on this episode. They are out walking. So let's find out where Fran and Rich are going out walking in today's show. Over to you guys.
Oh, we're off on a walk. Not on the canal today. We're going for a walk, see a local landmark. We're in the lovely town of Burlington in East Cheshire. So we've got a bit of a climb to do, haven't we, today?
Only a little one, isn't it? But we've not done any hill walking for quite a long while, have we?
No, it's going to test the old knees. Anyway, come along with us. So here we are at the top of the Kerridge Ridge, just on the south side of Burlington, and this is White Nancy. It's a monument built in 1817 to commemorate the Battle of Trafalgar by a member of the Gaskell family locally, and it used to have an entrance with a round table and stone seats all the way around it. It used to be their picnic spot. But anyway, since 1966 it's been classed as a Grade 2 listed building, and it wasn't painted until the 1920s, and it's had various colours over the years. Vandals painted it pink apparently, and to commemorate the end of the First World War, a big red poppy was painted on the side of it. So it's a really strange but wonderful monument that can be seen from miles around. So we're going to carry on our walk along the Kerridge Ridge, just here, another mile or so, and drop down back onto the canal and back to the boat. We're going to move this afternoon out of Burlington. So thanks for watching again. Cheers, everybody.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Rich and Fran, there from Floating Our Boat. Check them out. I don't know whether you've got another video coming out. Is it Thursdays you normally push them out? They come out the back of the boat, and there they are, looking absolutely fantastic. Do check them out. Superb. And what an interesting and unusual building or structure, I suppose, the White Fancy is. Fancy living on top of a hill, like the Neolithics used to do in their, or the Iron Age people rather, in their Iron Age hill forts, something like that. Amazing. Must get very windy though if you're living in a little place like that. Interesting looking at the comments about living on your own, whether you like your own company. I think Julia said that she would be all right if she had some animals, but are they? Well, they're they can be company. You can talk to your animals. I'm wondering if people. I remember when the lockdown, the first part of the very vicious part of the lockdown, or the strict part, people were saying they were talking to inanimate objects in the house because when they lived on their own, they had no one to talk to other than on these Zoom things. So that's all a little bit bizarre. But I talk to myself all the time. I always get the right answers. 07934746790. Where would you like to live? How would you like to live? Would you change the way you are living, or have you found the right place? Or is there a part of the world that you'd rather go if you could do anything you like? And are you sure that that is going to be right for you? I often, when I've been walking about, seen some places like that place in Fulking, the lovely 4-storied timber frame house, and thought, oh, do you know what? I'd love to live there. I'd love to live somewhere like that. But then I walk and see somewhere else, and I think, oh, I'd love to live there. So I'd never be satisfied. Hello to the caller calling in on the show.
Hello, is Ed Loud?
Hello, Ed. How are you?
Very well, thank you. You?
Yeah, I'm very well.
Cool. I can't do that for very long. Do you know I'm getting a sore throat talking that quietly?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Where would you like to? Nice video, by the way. Everyone's.
Thank you. Yeah,
they want to know how you did the tracking shot.
See, my lovely mother did one of them for me.
Oh, there we go.
She can't see a thing, so.
Oh, right.
Well done to her.
Well done to her. She just did it by voice.
And, the other tracking was just done with a zoom. I shot it in higher resolution and then just zoomed in on it so that I could track it across the shot.
So
anyway,
where would yes, go.
Pretty much anywhere sort of slightly isolated in Kent or Sussex.
So when you say in Kent or Sussex, do you mean by that you associating it with countryside?
Yes, countryside, but not too far out of the way because I don't drive. So
right.
I have to be able to get everywhere walking or by bike. Ideally, somewhere in the Romney Marsh, just because I know it so well. But
yes.
All of that area is fantastic, especially along the Kent and Sussex borders. That kind of area is quite nice.
So what would you do there?
Yeah, I think I just live my life the way I live now. I'm at a crossroads, really, in life, so I don't know where I'm going.
Well, you be careful, because juggernauts go down that crossroads.
But, I've got to start a new life, so if money was no object and I could just go and do what I want, that's what I would do, and I'd up sticks, and even if I lived in a caravan,
So when you say you're just living your life, just explain a little bit more about this. Say money is no object. Say you've inherited enough money, if you were frugal, let's say, for the next 30 years, that you didn't have to, you could buy some luxuries, so you could buy a sofa and a few bits of what have you in a house, but you haven't got enough money that you can have sports cars and yachts. But you've got enough that you haven't actually got to go to work if you don't want to. What would you do with yourself?
I would just keep doing my walks. I've basically been exploring England for the last 14 years, so hence why I think I just kept watching your shows all the time.
So when you say exploring England, by travelling?
Yeah, walking everywhere.
Oh, right. Okay.
Sometimes I take people with me. Sometimes I go on my own. I did a lot of it with my granddad, obviously. 99.9% of that was with my granddad. And gradually over the years, we got closer and closer to home. We couldn't go so far. But
where are some of your favourite places, then, in England that you've been exploring?
Yeah, again, close to home or the Romney Marshes. There's so many lovely places,
Well, I know.
I'd be here all day. Just looking at your show, places like Glastonbury and things like that, they're lovely. The North Downs, the South Downs, though, everything in between them, Kent, Sussex, even bits of Surrey. And lately I've discovered London, and I've lived here all my life, but the last 2 years I've really discovered places close to home. So ideally I would just keep doing that and maybe find some pals who could come with me now Granddad's gone. And I'd love to film it. That's the big regret. I wish when I was exploring with Granddad that I'd filmed it show others, to
Yes.
show people eerie stories and the words of wisdom. Even when he had quite severe dementia, just getting outdoors would come up, and he would kind of come back to me for a few hours. So I really regret not filming more of that, because I didn't start filming until I did that video that I sent in to you in Woolwich Common. And that was literally the first video I've ever edited in my life.
Oh, right. Well, you seem to have picked it up very easily. I mean, I think some people are born filmmakers, you know, they can just think in that way.
Well, it's a great credit to you, because literally everything I've learned about video editing has come from watching you and thinking, oh, now how did he do that? And sometimes you're quite willing to tell people as well. You don't sort of keep secrets, and I'd love to keep doing that. Not as a career or to make money. I don't like that kind of pressure, but I just love being able to you know, film a few minutes and show my friends and send it into a safe space, and I love that. And
so would you so just tell me what kind of property would you be living in?
I really wouldn't care, as long as I've got the basics, as long as I can cook.
Right. Okay. So it doesn't need to be a timber frame, or it can be a tower block or anything.
I literally could live in a caravan, which is why I know.
But I suppose I'm just trying to get to what would make you happiest.
If I could be absolutely happiest, I think I'd get my grandparents' old caravan and just go and stay there, a few miles outside Dymchurch, going towards St Mary's Bay. And I'd just stay there, and I know plenty of people and know where all the shops are, and I'd get on quite well for the rest of my life. I could stay there and retire. And it's a beautiful way of life, you know. All my family really have got a connection to that area. My parents had a place down there. My grandparents had caravans there. My aunt's got a caravan there. And all my spare time and free time was spent there. So it doesn't have to be there, but
I mean, this is a sort of fantasy place of where you live. Graham Roffey wants to know: have you got your own YouTube channel?
No, I haven't. But everyone keeps asking me this, so I'm just going to stick all the stuff I send in to you. I'm going to stick it on a YouTube channel so people can go and look at it if they want. And some of the stuff I send in to you is quite heavily abridged. There's a lot more that has been filmed, and I think I can sort of do 5-6 minute videos on my own.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is it. I mean, I'm only asking for 2 minutes because I'm trying to limit the amount of time. You know,
and I often push my luck on your channel as well. I do often go over the 3 minute mark. So
I don't mind.
I try to cut them down.
It's always good to have a time restriction, because that tells if you're a good editor or not. But it's if people go over to 4 and 5 minutes, and sometimes people do send them in, and I'm being more strict and saying, well, if it's 4 or 5 minutes, really, unless it's something that's really going to make me want to watch it, I'm having to say no. You know, because I've made it blatantly clear that about 2 to 3 minutes is really the maximum. Especially as we have limited time. I was going to say, but I don't know that makes much sense.
What I've found myself trying to do as a storyteller more than as a filmmaker is just see what's the value in what I'm putting into that. Because if I had more time, I'd put more long shots and just look at the landscape. But I try and sort of do a very quick-paced kind of video for your show, because you're very good at holding the fort and doing the slow, long game, the marathon. So I just come in and try and give people a bish, bash, bosh. There's the facts, and I'm really enjoying it. Goodbye. Thank you very much.
Well, we do appreciate.
If I had more time, I'd slow it down a bit, you know.
Yeah. Well, and it's something that you just have to keep doing it, and you learn what works for you, you know. And if you're doing it for yourself, do it for yourself. I mean, there's a thing about trying to please people, and you can't please everybody all the time. So in the end, do it for yourself, and you'll tighten up where you'll learn where to tighten and where to relax. And I've been doing this most of my life, and I'm still learning. And you watch, and you know, also when you've done it a long time, you get into a very rut of how you do it, and then you look at other people and you think, oh, actually, look, he's got a bloody good idea. And we all borrow and take from each other. You know, we're all magpies. That's what art is all about.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't really call to talk about my video. I just wanted to say that.
Well,
stick me in a caravan, or
that's what we'll do.
You know, anything like that. Stick me in that. Put me down in.
And we'll smell.
A green
We'll
space, and
smell
I'll be happy.
the odour of baked bread from the caravan on the Romney Marshes. It sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Well, actually, my sourdough starter comes from the Romney Marshes. I'm wondering if where you prepare your sourdough starter makes much of a difference. So
Who knows? Well, I guess it's down to the flour that you've used, isn't it?
I wouldn't like to say. I mean, I just do everything by feel and touch. I'm not a scientist, but I think if you're in a lovely open space like that and there's fields around you, surely the natural yeasts will be far better for making bread. But
well, give it a go and let us know. I've got to go. I have to move it on now, I'm afraid, Ed.
Of course.
Lovely. So much for talking to you. Thank you so much. And well, we look forward to your next video next time round.
Yeah, take care, everyone. Thanks for listening. Cheerio. Bye.
Take care, Ed. Bye-bye. There we are. Lovely Ed Loud. He wants to live in a caravan. We've had Rob, who was in a caravan for 18 months, and Ed, who wants to be in one. So there we go. Now, we know that Fran and Richard live in a canal. So that, not in a canal, that would be ridiculous. They're just swimming around like this, going, "Hey, how's it going? Yeah, not too bad. I can touch the bottom now. Oh, good." In a narrow boat is what I meant to say, which is, again, it's another confined space. That wouldn't work. I don't think I could live like that forever with somebody else, because I am somebody who does like his own space, and I do like to take myself off. And when I'm working on projects and things, I just do like to shut the door and focus. But who knows? It depends if it's the right person or not. What do you think? How would you like to live? There is still a bit more time if you want to give us a call, but we're going to have a look at our last video first of all, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to our last video of the day. And you may remember that Glastonbury Gabriel was taking us around on his new series, a tour of Glastonbury and some of the interesting places on it. We've got part 2. Let's have a look at part 2 of the blue plaques, although I think there's a blue plaque missing. What's going on?
I'm currently stood outside the Crown Hotel, which is the site of the second plaque on the Millennium Walk. However, sadly, the second plaque disappeared several years ago, and despite the protestations of councillors to replace it, there is still sadly a gap in the wall where it used to be. This is the Crown Inn in Glastonbury, mentioned in 1535. About 100 years ago it had a really bad fire and little remains of the medieval original, sadly. Glastonbury Marketplace forms the focus of the town's life. Many buildings around it date from the times of the Abbey, even though their fronts have been modernised during the centuries. Benjamin Ferry built this in 1845. Replaced the medieval water conduit and cross with its surrounding Jacobean octagonal market shelter. And this is the Georgian Pilgrims Inn, built by Abbot Selwood, always one for a nice drink, in 1465 for visitors to the town. And it is one of the finest surviving medieval inns in the country. Beer's a bit expensive though. This is the assembly rooms, built in 1864. I've had some right old good nights out in here. And here's the tribunal. This 600-year-old merchant's house had a new front put on it 500 years ago, strangely the same time as the Abbey was pulled down, nicking bits from it. And here's another former pub. Glastonbury's full of them. This one was called the Monarch. Now there's a tea rooms in there. And this is Vestry Hall, built in 1865. Up until 1901 it housed the town's horse-drawn fire engine. It used to emerge to a clatter of hooves and bells from that blocked-up arch over there on the left.
There we go. Wonderful Gabriel from Glastonbury. Fantastic. Love the music, by the way. What interesting things you had to say in that video. I was curious to have seen, but of course we couldn't because they'd put the new cross or whatever the ornamentation thing was in the market square there. I would love to have seen the covered market thing that you described. That would have been interesting. And of course the lovely Julia and I went to Glastonbury and we looked at some of those places, particularly the pub. I forget what you called it now. I tried to book a room there actually because they had rooms, but it was rather expensive. And then up the road we looked at the Justice House, which it was interesting there when you said that it had been pulled down. It had been built rather after or at the same time that the Abbey had been pulled down, and they were using some of the masonry, which was going on all over the country. People were robbing the masonry from the Abbeys. Fascinating stuff. Looking forward to the next one. And it could be you sending in a video. All you've got to do is you can use your phone or a video. Don't worry if it's just very basic editing. We really don't mind. And you can just tell us what you've been up to, really, or how you're coping with the lockdown, or whether you're back to work, or what it is you're doing. You can be the star of the show for 2 minutes or so. Send it up to me via WeTransfer, all the information in the description. Just looking at the comments there, and it's fascinating, the conversation going on about a lot of southerners apparently don't know that the north exists. Well, I'm not sure how true that is. We've got Rose Brooker saying, I'm a southerner, born in East Grinstead, but lived most of my life in Uckfield. But have lived in Derbyshire for the last 20 years. My sister has moved to Edinburgh, so we know the North and Midlands exist. Absolutely. I think if it was easier to get up there, other than flying, by car, the M1 we do have, but it is a pig, and with all the roadworks and the amount of traffic, it does put me off living right down in the south to go that far up north. But that said, I've been up to Cumbria twice. And enjoyed it, and looking forward, when we are allowed to stay overnight again, to go up to Northumberland. And I'd love to go to Berwick-on-Tweed. I'd love to go there with my tweed jacket on, of course. So probably have to go in the autumn for that sort of thing. Where would you like to live? How would you like to live? What sort of wonderful environment would you place yourself on into if you could? Give us a call. 07934746790 is the number to give me a tinkle. Tell me, what is your fantasy world, or where would you least like to live? What would be your worst and why? Or where has it been? I mean, I'm sure we can all imagine that, if you don't like tower blocks, then a tower block is, or if you don't like the countryside, then the countryside. But where is the worst place that you have lived, and why? That would be fascinating. We'll allow the show, normally I'm trying to finish at 9ish, but I'll allow the show just to go on a little bit if somebody does ring in. Mr. O'Connell says, I'd love to go for a pint with Glastonbury Gabriel. Yes, I'm hoping to do the same myself. It sounds like good fun. Hello to the caller calling up on the Vobes Show.
Hello, Mr. Vobes.
Hello, Mr. Suggett. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yes, I'm all very well. So where would you like to live?
You know what, I've discussed this so many times with my wife. My ideal place would be somewhere where I have no neighbours and I have plenty of land.
Okay. So is there any part of the country that you would like to do that, or does that not matter?
Not so much that it matters, but I'd like to be around this sort of area that we currently live in, so I'm not too far away from my family and my people I know.
And presumably, you being a veg grower, you'd want the soil to be to a certain standard.
Yes, but we can work on that. That's not the be-all and end-all of the problem, because you can always add compost and build up raised beds to get perfect growing conditions.
Right.
I mean, the sunlight would be the bigger issue, but with the right, I mean, if I've got several acres like I would like, there's going to be somewhere on that bit of land that I can get some sun.
And so it's quite a big ask then, isn't it? You want several acres. I mean, you're talking about a farmstead, aren't you? Or what?
Basically.
What do you call them?
Yeah. Homestead. Small holding.
A small holding.
Yeah.
In Sussex, you said more or less where you are now, but so somewhere in Sussex.
Somewhere in Sussex.
Yes.
What I've always said to the wife, I would really.
Could you find a more expensive county than Sussex?
Yeah, of course. Well, what I've said to the wife is what I would really like is an old farm. So I've got all the stables and all the old barns that probably won't be used for farm machinery, but I could use the stables to tinker around with some cars in spare time and store stuff in and hoard like I'm good at.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear that?
Yeah, it suddenly went dead.
Oh, right. Well, I was saying I would like ideally an old farm.
Yes.
With
barns with old cars in it that you want to tinker with.
Tinker with. Something to occupy the time.
Well, you probably need some old banger or something to drive around your 100 acres so you can get to the various parts of the farm.
Yes. Yeah.
And would you make use? Would you make use of all the land, or what would you do with the land?
I think you would have to look after it. I would like a bit of forest, a bit of the nature, as long as I can do what I want to do with my land.
Yes.
I wouldn't want somebody having to tell me what I can and can't do with my land.
And so that okay. I mean, we're stretching the fantasy now that you can do anything you like with your land. I'm assuming that most land comes with some form of things you can and can't do.
Yeah.
But if you've got an old dilapidated farm that perhaps has got a farmhouse on it of some description, some barns of some state, and however many acres, say 10 or 20 acres or whatever it is, that you are allowed to. I mean, if you're veg growing and tinkering with mechanical things, that's pretty much what farmers do most of the time, isn't it?
Yeah. Except they're trying to make a living out of it.
Yes, I mean, presumably the land is going to cost you something if you don't do something to it, because there may be. I mean, I don't know, but perhaps the environmental agency or the farming agency or whoever it is may say, well, actually, you've got to keep those hedges trimmed, or you've got to look after that stream that comes as part of it, or there's these footpaths that you've got to maintain. So you've got to earn some cash, presumably from the land.
In this fantasy land, I've won the lottery several times over.
Oh, okay.
Just sitting on the millions. So I didn't realise you were going to get this into it. And
well, I do like to challenge. I like to challenge the caller. So because we can all dream up a fantasy world and go, well, in an ideal world, I don't have to pay anything. I can just sit on my backside and do nothing. But what I'm saying is, let's put. Okay, so we put you in this farm. You've inherited this farm through a long lost granny or whatever, and there you are. But somehow you've got to make it pay something to maintain it to the level that I'm putting a bit of realism into it now. So would you turn to farming?
No, definitely not. I enjoy gardening, but farming is there's no money in it for starters, and there's too many rules and regulations
right
that I wouldn't want to get stuck into.
So would you actually need a farm then? I mean, would you, if you're not actually going to do anything with the land other than just let it go to waste?
Well, for me, the reason I would want the land is that I've got this. I get on well with my neighbours, and nothing against them, but I'm always, if it gets past 7 o'clock at night, I'm always wary that if I'm making the slightest bit of noise, I might upset the neighbours.
Mm.
So for me, it's more about having that distance between myself and the neighbours.
Are you antisocial? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not, yeah, I can be antisocial, yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. I mean, I'm hemmed in on both sides. Fortunately, one side of me, the house is empty at the moment, but I've lived on the other side. There is somebody in, and then she's okay. She's very nice, but I have had neighbours where the woman in there has had parties in the back garden very frequently and shrieked and laughed and it's just, neighbours can be an issue, absolutely. I mean, they can be as charming as anything. And when I got married, my neighbour, who I didn't know terribly well, was my best man. Now that's a bit freaky, but it was out of necessity because we just had a registry office job because we weren't religious, and we just needed someone to sign the thing as a witness. And so I asked, can't even remember his name now. How awful is that? And said, would you come along? And he said, yeah, no problem. And he drove us up there. It's a sad life that I've led, ladies and gentlemen. Very sad. And I didn't mean to admit that live on the show, but there we go. But I now divorced, so it's all a history thing. So isolated from your neighbours, you just carry on growing enough food then for yourselves. And so, I mean, this is the thing. If you've got neighbours there, you could grow a little bit of produce to hand out to your neighbours.
Well, that is very true. But, my neighbours overlook my garden, and if I feel it's a bit of a mess, it reflects on them as well.
Right. So you're not looking for a couple of acres. If your neighbour is a couple of acres away, that's a hell of a distance, really, compared to next door, isn't it? So you don't really need a lot of land to be at a distance where the neighbour isn't going to mind.
Well, the other reason that I would like a lot of land is so that nobody else can build on it.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a laudable reason.
Yeah.
Unless unless we're desperate for property and what have you. But yeah, no, quite right. I do tend to agree that we are building on the wrong sort of land.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's the biggest reason I want lots of land is that. I mean, that probably sounds like, well, I can have it so nobody else can. But
it's greedy if you're not doing. I mean, if I had several acres, then I might plant a wood.
Yeah.
Do something that way. I haven't got to do much then. You just plant a wood and let it grow and maintain it, and but you've got to wait 20 years for something to happen, really. So you haven't got to do a lot. So that would keep the wolf not from the door, but give the wolf actually somewhere to live. Anyway, that's brilliant. So there we go. The Veg Grow podcast. So just an expansion of what you are already doing.
Especially while I'm on fire, it's definitely an expansion.
Yeah, well, would you be working? Would you work?
Well, no, I've got millions in the bank. Of course not. That would be greedy.
How much? Okay, then how much would you need to suddenly stop working? Would you need as much as you earn now that's coming in every year from interest or whatever? Or would you want to have a lot more to...
It would depend, obviously, on the expenses if I've got a huge house. If I base it on my current house, then I could probably take a slight pay cut to live at home. But as long as the bills get paid, I'll be happy. My main priority is always paying the bills. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you didn't have to work, you because some people, I mean, I couldn't not work. I mean, I love what I do, and hence why I'm doing what I do. But I mean, I still have to earn some money, and the patrons out there look after me, and and of course, hopefully, more patrons will come along and assist in that process. But I couldn't not. I'm not somebody who would go, do you know what? I'm just going to sit on my, and tinker. I like to serve. I realised I actually like to serve. I mean, people might say, "Oh, we're all sitting there having a great deal of fun," but actually, well, it's 3 nights a week now, and it was every day, and I go out and do. I do actually like to serve.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've always, I've worked every day of my life up until this current situation, and I've always been very much, I want to earn my money, I want it, and I've still got an attitude. I'm not saying I haven't, but something that I discovered during this furlough time is that how much I've been enjoying just working in my garden. It's still a type of work.
Yes, but you're working for yourself, and you're being
working for myself.
Self-sufficient in a way, like the good life.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, definitely something I've taken away from that. But the trouble is, living self-sufficiently doesn't pay the mortgage. So
no. But I think if people can get the experience that you've got from being furloughed, and it's almost like you've had a sabbatical from work. Yeah. And a lot of people, they need a sabbatical. They work, they get up, they go, and they've got all this stress. And maybe you've been de-stressed over this because you haven't got to worry about the money quite so much. It's 80% of what you normally earn. I understand that. But it's not like many of my friends from the entertainment industry who used to go around doing corporate parties and birthday parties and all of that, and boom, can't do it. Unless they're able now to get some sort of income from the government on the self-employment thing, because most of them are self-employed. But so it's a bit of a sabbatical, which is great.
Yeah. Well, I've actually taken more of a pay cut than that. I've been paid 80% of my basic, but as you know, I work a lot of overtime because that's the nature of my job.
Yes.
And I've missed out on that money as well, which...
Do you regret? Here's a question to finishing off. Here's a question: do you regret having this time off and not having that money?
I don't regret it as such. It's just a shame it's come under these circumstances.
Yes, but I mean, as a period of 10 weeks where you haven't had to go to work and you haven't had to think, oh my God, how am I going to earn money? Generally, and we've had some fantastic weather to be out in the garden and get close to nature and sort out your allotment more than you ever had. So you don't regret that. I mean, some people might go, I just wanted to go back to work, really, but it's been a good sabbatical.
It's been a good sabbatical. I do want to go back to work because I'm effectively sponging off the government.
Yes,
and I've always myself on never doing that.
Well, the government forced you into it, remember? So you're not sponging off the government. Yeah. They forced you into that. I wouldn't take that. It's different. It's different if you were bone idle and were claiming the dole and just wouldn't go to work. Then, I think people would say, well, there's nothing wrong with you. You should go to work. But the government forced you into this situation. I mean, all right, the government may have been forced into that situation, and maybe they've taken the right choice or not. That's a different debate. But the government have decided that you will not leave your house for a certain period or whatever it is, and they put you into that situation. And quite rightly, now they're giving you enough to keep you going. So enjoy it whilst you can. Anyway, better move on. Thank you so much, Richard, for calling in.
No worries. Thank you.
And take care. Look after yourself.
Yeah, will do. You take care, buddy.
But will do. Bye for now.
Yes, bye.
There we go, lovely Richard Suggett. I think that sort of brings us to the end of today's show, and normally just trying to get the Monday and Wednesday shows an hour long, and we'll do an hour and a half on Friday, hopefully with the lovely Julia in tow, which will be superb. Let's just have a quick look at your comments, see how things are. Ed says, I love filming in places near busy lane highways. Oh, okay. Jeff Kellison says, Arkansas is extremely beautiful state, but it's like 1950s filled with religious zealots and who chain smoke. I've got a great friend who listened to the original Vobes show, the podcast version of the show, Charles Stell, who lives in Arkansas, actually. And We went over there, a mate of mine called Jimmy and I went over there in 2006 and stayed with him and Brandy, his wife, who's since passed away, and had a lovely time over there. But we're absolutely weird. When we were driving towards his house, it was a bit like a scene from Deliverance. We were slightly worried that we would never come out. And we hadn't met Charles at that point, and we were staying the night there. It was a very odd experience to begin with, but as soon as we met Charles, we knew, and Brandy, we knew we were in great company. Josephine Suter says, your mum has a steady hand, talking about the filming. Judith says something to Graham. They're talking about that. Janice Wallace says, Little Rock, poor schools, unemployment rampant, but some beautiful hills and forest in the southwest corner. Little Rock is a city you want to drive through quickly and move on. I guess that's in America then. Henry's Adventures says, this is the same for me. Being furloughed is brilliant. I wish it could go on forever. I'm not saying that I want COVID-19 to go on forever, however. No, absolutely. And it must be very nice for some people. And I can understand how they might want it to go on forever, because it's effectively the government paying for them to sit at home and enjoy the sunshine, which has been going on. But I think actually, it's almost, all the deaths and everything and all that side of it is obviously nothing that one would wish on anybody, of course. And if that couldn't have happened. But it is, I think, I haven't stopped. I in fact increased what I do. But I think for those people who work for other people and had bosses and the stresses and the way that work is carried out, employment these days, it seems to me, having worked as an entertainer going into the corporations and watching how they do it, or as a corporate filmmaker watching how bosses and employees speak to each other, or managers and line managers treat each other because of this chain of stress that comes down. I think people who work in those sort of industries definitely need to have a reset, which may be what this situation has done. Not everybody, of course, wants to work from home, and obviously some people enjoy the banter of the office. So it's not going to be right for everyone. If you've enjoyed the show tonight, do give me a thumbs up on the thing. That would be nice. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Going to be back on Friday, same time. There is a video out tomorrow from the Bald Explorer with an interesting request that some people might want to get involved with, or not, as the case may be. And I'm trying to work out where to go. It's going to be a grey, miserable morning, though not raining, I don't think, here in Sussex. And I want to try and get out, but I've got an important object that Mr. Jeff Kellison will know all about that's coming at some point after 11 o'clock, which is going to make this studio and what we do here a lot better. So I've got to make sure I'm back for that. Very exciting. And then there's a few other components for it that will be coming in the week. More about that later on. Hopefully Monday there'll be something interesting to talk about. Darren Robert Dendy says your videos... Oops, hang on, I lost it. Your videos have been marvellous lately, old bean. Thank you very much. That's very nice of you to say so. I'm glad they're going down. I'm trying to up the ante with what I do. Night, people of England and the USA and beautiful parts of the blue globe, says Mr. Connell. Good night to you. Thank you for joining us tonight. The lovely Julia says, thanks, Richard. That's very my pleasure. Bye all, floating our boat. See you all Friday. Absolutely. Look after yourselves, everybody, wherever you happen to be. And thank you for joining in. If you've got a burning topic for Friday's show, do email me, richard@vobes.com. Let me know what it is. And we could be discussing that on Friday. But for now, from me, thank you so much. Take care. And thank you to Judith and to Julia for doing the moderation, though I think everyone's been good as gold. Thank you to everybody who sent in the videos, and to you for tuning in and watching, and to my patrons and all of that. And we'll see you on Friday. Ta-ta for now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Now, it's back to my big Georgian mansion for me and get out of this little house.